please have your masks on and avoid getting very close to each other. Let's keep social distance. Thank you very much. So we proceed with our questions. The honorable member for Butere seems not to be in the House, but the next member, other members, the next member, that's the member for Kikuyu, the Honorable Ishungwa, has indicated to us that actually the majority whip should read a question on his behalf, but I don't even see the majority whip. So we'll proceed to the next one, which is by the member for Kilifi North, the Honorable Owen Baya.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question number 020 of 2021 to the Cabinet Secretary for Lands and Physical Planning. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain when the government will address the plight of the residents of Takaungu, Kilifi North constituency, who have endured years of neglect, disservice, and historical injustices in their own motherland with regard to settlement and land ownership? 2, what specific affirmative and other measures is the government pursuing to assist residents of Takaungu, Kilifi North constituency in securing their livelihoods through settlements and issuance of title deeds? And lastly, when will the government finalize compensation for the Mazrui family's land in Takaungu, Kilifi North constituency for settlement of squatters, considering that funds had been allocated for compensation in the financial year 2019-2020 supplementary budget? I thank you, Honorable
Very
Speaker.
well. That will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Lands. Next is the member for Muranga, Honorable Sabina Chege. You have a question you want to ask, or you do not have the information there? Yes, proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I start to ask the question number 021 of 2021. And this question goes to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination and National Government. Mr. Speaker, my question is, what is the status of investigations into the death of Ms. Judy Wajiko of ID number 33767891, who was thrown out of a moving vehicle registered KCZ 729C belonging to Member Circle in Juja? Secondly, what immediate actions have been taken against the owners of the motor vehicle as well as the Member Circle for causing the death of Ms. Judy Wanjiko? Number 3, could the ministry consider taking punitive measures against the Member Circle, including registering it from conducting passenger service operations? And 4, within which timelines will the family of Mrs. Judy Wanjiko be compensated for the loss of the life of their loved one? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. Now, the Honorable Majority Whip, you can ask the question on behalf of the member for Kikuyu, and I could see the...
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Just a minute. Now this is something that we would want to really... I can see the Honorable Member of Kikuyu, putting up his hand. Now, I do understand, and the only other member who would have asked on his behalf would have been the Majority Whip, because I had received information that is the one to ask, so it could not have been anybody else. If any member would wish a member to ask a question on their behalf, they must be able to give that information. Proceed, the Honorable Member for Kikuyu.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for your indulgence and having allowed the Honorable Whip. I'm panting because I came running, Honorable Speaker, from the gate because of traffic. Honorable Speaker, I beg to ask question number 015 of 2021 to ask the Cabinet Secretary for Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, 1, whether the Cabinet Secretary is aware that as a result of government policy, the prices of raw hides and skins from our local abattoirs have greatly declined, thus negatively impacting the livelihoods of thousands of our people. Why does the government allow the importation of raw hides and skins from neighboring countries while at the same time stopping Kenyan traders from exporting the same raw hides and skins, as was the case before? 3, why did the government of Kenya ban exportation of unprocessed skins and hides from Kenya, yet it does not provide facilities for value addition and processing of raw hides and skins? Within what timelines shall this ban be lifted? 4, why has government failed to complete construction of the Kinanie leather processing plant in Athi River, Machakos County, and what plans are there to complete this facility and any other similar ones across the country? 5, how will the government of Kenya enable Kenyans, and particularly operators of abattoirs in Ruai and Dagoretti market that traverses between Kikuyu and Dagoretti South constituencies, to access markets that fetch good pricing for their hides and skins, and to address the declining prices of hides and skins in the country? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Okay, that one will be replied to before the Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. Now, the honorable members, order member, order. What is it? I'm not giving you the floor. No. That cannot be allowed. On an issue of question, there cannot be any, there will not be any intervention. There will be order, honorable member. Take your seat. Now take your seat. So the honorable member for Homa Bay has had her motion approved. And therefore, I'm thinking, rather than we push it to the afternoon, we can actually dispense with it now. If you allow me to. Bogikaria.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. This one was, I can't remember exactly which order it was, when the Chief Whip did move. I think he was laying some reports regarding the foreign donation issues, and it did touch on Committee on Energy. Honorable Speaker, I would wish, because we are looking at the implementation of the budget, that you direct the table office to avail these documents so that we could be able to pick the few copies of what involves the respective departments, so that we can be able to do some scrutiny on a few of those issues. Honorable Speaker.
Obviously, I didn't get what you are saying, the Honorable Gikaria. You may need to repeat again.
And now, Honorable Speaker, I was really...
What is it, Honorable Gikaria? Proceed, Honorable Gikaria.
Thank you.
And I want you to concentrate. What is it, Honorable Gikaria?
You know, Honorable Speaker, I even tried to raise my voice so that your eyes
Proceed,
could be...
Honorable Gikaria. What is your...
Honorable Speaker, I was saying the Chief Whip did table some reports regarding foreign donation issues that affect part of our committee's work. So I was asking, with your humbleness, to direct the table office to avail those reports, because we are having a meeting on Tuesday morning so that our committee could be able to go through.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That one is noted. It will be done. So the honorable member for Homa Bay.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion: that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on its inquiry into the optimization of revenue in grain handling services at the Port of Mombasa, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, November 26, 2020. I also beg to give notice of the following motion, Honorable Speaker, that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on inspection visits to the Kenya Revenue Authority offices to ascertain the impact of revenue enhancement initiatives on revenue collection, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, November 26, 2020. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. So we go to the next order.
Order number 8, the Crops Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 25 of 2019, second reading. Resumption of debate.
Honorable members, we are resuming debate, and we have a debate that was interrupted on Thursday, 11th February 2021, the morning sitting. The balance of time that we have is 2 hours, 15 minutes. I'm eager to know whether there was a member on the floor. If not, then I'll proceed and give out. There was no member. So, Honorable Yusuf Haji, member for Mandera West, you want to speak to this one?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I think since agriculture is the backbone of our economy, and agriculture was the only sector that was able to grow during the COVID madness, this is the right time to make sure that we implement this Crops Amendment Bill of the National Assembly such that we continue gaining while COVID is continue affecting seriously on the other sector. Agriculture will continue gaining. And some of these acts or some of these amendment bills, like this one in particular, the Crop Amendment Bill, which is with us here, we would like it to be ensure that other crops, such as the ones which have been introduced, we make sure that they are also put in the schedule, crop schedule, and we can be able to gain from this so much. Every Kenyan, whether in urban area or in rural area, depends on the crops in one way or another. Without it, life will be very difficult. And hence, I stand to support this bill. Thank you.
Yes, on Honorable Omboko Milemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. I think I want on the onset to support this bill by saying that Kenya, being founded on the agriculture as the main root of our economy, we need to harness all crops that require to be part of the scheduled crops. And this particular crop, Big Sa, is one of the crops that is doing very well, especially at the coast. And it has several values, not mentioning all of them, but including things to do with drugs, lipstick, coloring, and so on and so forth. So the people of Lamu, Kwale, and the coastal region would benefit immensely if this one is actually scheduled as a crop. And that will go a long way to actually then allow research on the crop in order to found and expand its use. It also goes a long way to then create foreign exchange for the farmers and also allow research on this crop for its medicinal value, given that now we are struggling with COVID and we don't know where the drug will really come from. This could be the area. And above all, farmers will gain in terms of the value of their crop. So, Honorable Speaker, I think this is a bill that I want to fully support, and without much time taken, I want to support it. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Sanko.
Thank you very much.
And your card is always on top. What time do you put your card in here? Because
very early in the morning, Honorable Speaker, because I must earn from my sweat. That when I work, I have been taught by my parents that I should not earn where I have not worked. So I make sure that every early in the morning, I'm here before the Speaker, and I leave after the Speaker, so that whatever I earn is a blessing to my kids and is a blessing to my business. Honorable Speaker, this is a very important motion, Honorable Speaker, and agriculture being the backbone of our economy, Honorable Speaker, and also realizing that during COVID-19, the only sector that was doing well was actually agriculture. And most of us were directed back to go back to the rural areas because there was cessation of movements in towns, but there were no cessation of movements in rural areas, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, there was plenty of agricultural activities. Most of our young men, energetic, who are working in industrial area, Honorable Speaker, went back to our rural areas, hence jump-starting our agricultural sector, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, with this in mind, we need to think about this agriculture as a strategy in the post-COVID recovery strategy, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, again, we have heard of this crop called bitsa, Honorable Speaker, which is very valuable, Honorable Speaker. It have, Honorable Speaker, antioxidant, Honorable Speaker, which remove free radicals in our system, Honorable Speaker. It's a very important crop, Honorable Speaker, but we have not been able to educate our people on this, Honorable Speaker. And this is a high time that the government think, Honorable Speaker, of marketing some of these products, not only within, but also outside this country, Honorable Speaker. Because in terms of marketing of our agricultural product, our government have totally failed, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we have very important crops, Honorable Speaker. And this crop does well in arid and semi-arid areas, regions, Honorable. I'm sure in Narok it will do well, Honorable Speaker. And it's part of Machakos and other areas, Honorable Speaker. And the moment we really invest on it, then we will economically assist our people, Honorable Speaker. And it's high time that the government invest a lot in the issue of marketing. Because before Honorable Owen Mbaya talked about this crop, some of us were not aware of this crop, even members of this House, Honorable Speaker, the benefit of this crop, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, lastly, we have to invest in agriculture seriously, Honorable Speaker. We are blessed as a country that we have water that is above, Honorable Speaker. Water that is 3,000 feet above sea level, especially in the Aberdare, Honorable Speaker, water from Mount Kenya, Honorable Speaker, water from Mount Elgon and Kilimanjaro, Honorable Speaker. Ours as a government is only to channel this water through piping to regions of semi-arid areas. And 80% of our land, Honorable Speaker, is semi-arid. Fortunate enough, these areas are very fertile, Honorable Speaker. After a lot of soil erosion deposited soil, fertile soil from the highlands to the lowlands, Honorable Speaker. If we can channel water to this semi-arid and arid region, Honorable Speaker, we will be able to empower our people and be able to have enough food that means food security, Honorable Speaker. We'll be able to have an alternative source of income, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, for instance, we gave 10 billion to Kazi Mitaani, Honorable Speaker. We gave 10 billion to youth to go and slash and do some manual work and blocking sewages, Honorable Speaker. Yet even the grasses that we have cut have grown, Honorable Speaker. If these people were taken to irrigation schemes in our lowlands, where water is channeled from our highlands to our lowlands, Honorable Speaker, we will be having an alternative source of income as a government instead of overtaxing our citizens, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you see now the issue of fuel because of overtaxing, because we are not thinking of other channels of economically empowering our country, Honorable Speaker. The fuel here in Kenya is now at 100 and above shillings, Honorable Speaker. In Uganda, it is 60 shillings. If you translate to Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker, you wonder, we have a harbor. All the fuel to Uganda passes through Kenya. But we pay more than actually the country that we give oil, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, I think it is high time we think of ways of jump-starting the agricultural sector, not only on bitsa, but there are also other things like ndengu, Honorable Speaker. There are, Honorable Speaker, wheat, barley, and so on. The moment we empower our farmers, I'm assuring you, Honorable Speaker, this country will be somewhere in terms of economy, Honorable Speaker. 80% of our landmass we are not using because the government have not invested a lot on agriculture. I do support this motion, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Honorable Sosion, you wanted to speak on this one or the next one? He's not even there. The Honorable Baya Yeah.
I moved this, I seconded this motion.
Sorry.
But I would like to say this, Mr.
Sorry,
Speaker,
no,
that,
if you have done it, don't
so
even
that
bother.
I can give information
No,
about this bill.
we don't require that information at this point in time. You will do it later. Don't flout the standing order. So we will give the Honorable Amin Kasim.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me to give my input in regards to this crop amendment bill. Kenya, as a nation, has relied heavily on crop production and agriculture as a whole, and it's a major income earner for our country. Over the years, there have been significant contributions from agriculture, but in terms of budget provision, we have not been careful in terms of apportioning significant amount of money so that we can be able to make our land more productive and more sustainable in terms of crop production and agriculture as a whole. Honorable Speaker, nearly 80% of this land is ASAL, and it has significant amount of land which can be exploited and is a major frontier for in terms of crop production and livestock production. Honorable Speaker, it is imprudent for this nation to have a certain strategic consideration so that we can be able to use specific areas where there's the strength, where there's endowment, where there's potential, so that we map this country as a whole and say this part will be used for agriculture, this part will be used for crop production. I'm familiar with the BIXA, this crop. This crop has a very significant contribution. It can be able to develop energy, it can be able to provide fruits, juices, it can be able to provide, it has significant and numerous benefits to the society. So if this project...
Honorable Sankok, you realize that you have spoken to this twice. You know, that is extremely...
Speaker, in the world, the animal with the shortest memory is always only the wadok. But I doubt if I have that short memory. I don't remember really speaking on this, but if then I spoke on it, probably I've forgotten because the issues of agriculture are so many, and this one is especially the pizza. So I do apologize.
Honorable Sankok,
I do apologize.
This is not a matter, you know, of making jokes about.
I apologize.
You know, you cannot come and tell us that you have a short memory. Now, and then therefore you contribute twice. It is even morally unacceptable. It's morally unacceptable, and I might actually decide to give you mete out some punishment against you. I might actually decide to do that, to serve an example to others. Members who want to speak and pretend that they have forgotten that they spoke, and therefore take an opportunity to contribute twice when other members do not have an opportunity.
Mr. Speaker, I do apologize. I sincerely do apologize. I did not remember.
So, and it is not all the time that you want to joke about a mistake that happens.
No, I just forgot. I've just said I forgot.
Your apology must be unreserved.
I'm apologizing.
If you tell me that you had forgotten that you contributed, that is actually another mistake. So, Honorable Sankok, we must take work in Parliament a bit more seriously.
I do apologize.
So proceed and wind up.
Okay. Thank you, Chair, for your indulgence, because there's tendency for Honorable Sankok to speak on every matter in the floor of this House without putting consideration of other members who significantly need to have time. And it's good that you have been able to speak on this matter. Thank you very much. Honorable Chair, as far as the ASAL is concerned, ASAL has 80% of this small land is ASAL, and it's a water-scarce region. We, as a country, have not been able to look at what opportunities we can be able to use in terms of technology, because technology is a great significance, and this country have not been able to use technology in terms of farming. Water conservation, irrigation, drip irrigation, these are some of the technological improvements which have been done in a very advanced country, which we as a country need to speak on and support. so that we can be able to realize the full potential of this country, because this country is an agricultural country. Further to that, there's a manufacturing part of it, because this is a segment. After production, we need to go to storage, and after storage, we need to go to manufacturing part of it, so that we can be able to use it significantly and get the really meaning of agriculture, being an agricultural country. Honorable Speaker, PIXA grows very well in a hot area. It has a lot of potential. The potential in the sense that it has a lot of benefit. You can be able to derive juice from it. It's a medicinal in value. So I will support this conversation in trying to promote this crop, not only this crop, but all other dry crops that can be able to do in a dry areas, which can make us use this potential. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
So we go to the next member, the Honorable Ted Mwambire.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to demonstrate my appreciation and support of this bill. Mr. Speaker, it is a long overdue that this country should look at to harness all the opportunities across the country for the betterment of the Republic. Mr. Speaker, for a long time, the government has never been never been putting more efforts in promoting crops which do well in other parts of the country. I believe if passage of this bill will give an indication to areas like coast region, whereby it will be doing well, and it will also be in a position to also appreciate what we have in the region and also be part and parcel of the promoters in this country. Mr. Speaker, I believe that even after passage of this bill, other crops will also be looked into, like cashew, coconut, pawpaws, pineapples. All the crops which do well in this country must be given the best support, so that at least people can revert to agriculture, Mr. Speaker. We have been doing a lot, but I think this is the time we look into agriculture, and not just production, but also in manufacturing, so that we can also be exporting products and byproducts for the betterment of this nation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is my humble request that members will see the need of supporting this bill, so that PIXA can be one of the great crops in this country. And I believe in after 3 or 5 years, Mr. Speaker, this country will have moved a notch higher in terms of revenue and also even export, because I know PIXA does very well along the coast and among other areas in this country. Like even Mumias can also be part of those areas which can have PIXA as a crop. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Honorable Aweru Kiarie, KJ. You want to speak on this one, or you are not ready? You had placed your card there.
Honorable Speaker, I wanted to speak on the next matter.
Okay.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so then we go to the Honorable Ali Adman. Which side are you in? Okay, then I'll eventually, after Ali Adman, I'll give two members from the other side. Honorable Adman, you are not even ready.
I'm ready. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa kutumia fursa hii kwanza kumpongeza Mheshimiwa Tandaza kuja na mswada huu. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukweli ni kwamba sote tunafahamu kwamba ukulima ndiyo nchi wa ugongo katika maisha ya leo. Mheshimiwa Spika, mmea huu ambao Mheshimiwa Tandaza ameutaja ni mmea ambao unapatikana sehemu ya pwani zaidi, hususan Lamu na Kwale. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, kabla sijazungumzia kuhusu mmea huu, ningependa kuzungumza swala zima la ukulima, Mheshimiwa Spika, na faida ya ukulima hususan katika nchi hii na eneo la pwani. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukweli ni kwamba Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa masikitiko makubwa sana, mbali ya kwamba tunafahamu kwamba ukulima ndiyo muhimu sana katika uchumi wetu ambao tumeuona wazi ya kwamba katika mambo mengi sana watu wanajitegemea na ukulima. Lakini kwa masikitiko makubwa Mheshimiwa Spika, nikizungumzia eneo la pwani, nataka niseme ya kwamba ukulima umefifia sana kwa sababu ya kutotiliwa nguvu ama ya kusaidika ama ya kutosaidiwa na serikali. Mheshimiwa Spika, ninaamini hapo kwamba wapwani wanapenda sana masala ya ukulima na wanajitahidi pakubwa sana, lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, ukweli ni kwamba katika swala hili wapwani hawajasaidika namna ya kujiendeleza na ukulima wao. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hivyo tunapojadili swala hili Mheshimiwa Spika, ni vyema tufahamu ya kwamba na serikali ijue ya kwamba wapwani wanahitaji sana usaidizi wa serikali katika kuendeleza ukulima kule, kwamba tuko na ardhi vya kutosha na tuko na mimea, na katika hali hii tunaamini ya kwamba lau tutapata misaada kama vile misaada mingine inavyotolewa katika sehemu nyingine katika nchi hii, basi pwani itakuwa na ukulima mwingi sana na wengi watajiingiza katika jambo hili kule, kwamba wanaweza kusaidika na wanasaidiwa katika kuliendeleza jambo hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, vile vile ni vyema tufahamu katika nchi hii ya kwamba hali ya uchumi yetu hivi sasa, ukulima ndilo jambo ambalo twahitaji kulipea kipaumbele Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa maana hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ardhi tuko nazo na wanaohitaji kufanya ukulima tuko nao, lakini ukweli Mheshimiwa, nataka tuzungumze ya kwamba serikali lazima ijitokeze kupitia kwa wizara husika kuhakikisha ya kwamba wakulima hawa wameweza kusaidiwa kwa njia zote wanazotaka na kuhamasishwa na kuhakikisha ya kwamba wameweza kufanya ukulima wao ili kujiendeleza na kujimudu katika maisha leo. Kwa haya Mheshimiwa Spika, narudi kuhimiza ya kwamba ni wajibu wa serikali kuhakikisha ya kwamba wakulima wamefaidika wa sehemu zote, na hususan wa pwani, nikiamini pakubwa kwamba wakulima wa pwani wameachwa nyuma kwa kutosaidiwa na serikali katika swala zima la ukulima. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Surprisingly, many members who want to contribute are to my left. So I'm trying to look out for members from my right. But in the meantime, let's have Honorable Mishimboko. Then I will give the rest of the members. I'll look out for any member from this other direction and give them an opportunity, because not many of them are here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Honorable Speaker, I want to support this motion by Honorable Tandaza. And from the onset, I want to congratulate him and appreciate him for coming up with such an important amendment in this bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Achiote crop, or rather Mrangi, or popularly known as Biksa, was introduced in the Coast region way back in 1970, Mr. Speaker. This crop is disease-free. This crop can also resist drought, and this crop grows mainly in the Coast region, in the area of Lamu, and also in Kwale at the area called Tiwi. Honorable Speaker, to note is that there is a small industry in Kwale County at Tiwi of Biksa. But it's unfortunate that it's almost collapsing because it doesn't get any support from the government, and it doesn't even get some advice in terms of value addition, and they don't even get advice in terms of marketing, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this crop has different benefits to the society, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the crop can be harvested and be used to create cosmetics products such as lipstick, Mr. Speaker. It can also be used to create cheese, margarine. It can also be used to create dyes throughout the world, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, other farmers can also use this crop as a buffer crop so that it can assist them to distract wild animals from distracting their crops, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we know our traditional cash crops in the coast, like the coconut and the cashew nut, are scheduled crops, but they are still at third schedule, whereas they don't get the benefit like the other crops which are under first schedule. Honorable Speaker, this bill tends to ensure that Biksa is put under the first schedule, Honorable Speaker. And I know it is not difficult because the bill does not attract any additional finances to ensure that it is implemented, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if this schedule is put under first schedule, it has several benefits, including strategic advices in terms of value addition, financial support from the government, also ensuring that there is steady market for the crops. Therefore, farmers can be motivated to continue growing such crop. Honorable Speaker, in the ASAL areas, or rather semi-arid areas, through research, I'm sure this crop can also grow very well. And in that sense, Honorable Speaker, we can boost our economy because we can create a big industry, whereas we can create some opportunities in terms of jobs and also boost our economy, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, through the resolve of this Parliament, I want to plead or rather appeal to the Cabinet Secretary because he has that power to declare this crop as a first scheduled crop, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we have challenges in terms of employment. We have challenges in terms of our economy right now because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Honorable Speaker, if you can really utilize the finances we have through the Ministry of Agriculture and ensure that we assist farmers who grow such kind of crop, then I think we'll be ahead and we'll also ensure the Agenda 4 of His Excellency Honorable Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, which talks about manufacturing. This will be one of the industry which can be created in the Coast region, Honorable Speaker. For all that, what I've said, I wish to support this amendment and again, once again, to congratulate Honorable Tandaza. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Ngeno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me this opportunity to speak to this particular amendment. Mr. Speaker, from the first instance, I want to say that I support, and I want also to give my input, especially on matters to do with the agricultural crops, which most of the areas that we come from I use as part of their earnings, at the same time as food. Mr. Speaker, remember our country, almost 80% of our country is agricultural. Our country from time immemorial has been relying mostly on agriculture. Mr. Speaker, even the first instant after independence and even before independence, you realize, Mr. Speaker, the major issues we had with the colonial governments was the matter to do with land. And the issue of land was because majorly most of our people were agriculturists, and their way of living was through agriculture. Mr. Speaker, the reason why most of our people fought for independence, and even after independence or post-independence, we've had issues with communities, is because of land. And the reason why they fight for land, Mr. Speaker, is so that they use the land as agriculture, for agricultural use and also for other domestic uses. Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate that some way back we abandoned the most income earner to our country, because generally, Mr. Speaker, and as we know even up to now, the greatest GDP earner to our country is still agriculture. Although we have tourism and a few others, we still rely on agriculture, both for the domestic use and also for foreign earner. Our country lost its immediate agenda on agriculture because, Mr. Speaker, we thought maybe we could rush to other matters like industrialization and communication and all that. But, Mr. Speaker, we did that without plan. We should have first made sure that agriculture is stabilized in our country, because it is agriculture, it's through agriculture that we can move now to the next level of development. Mr. Speaker, I say so because although we have had several agendas on matters of crops, like we remember, Mr. Speaker, the ministry plus the Kenyan government opted to do irrigations on areas like in the coastal region and some parts of southern part of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, those plans never went through because instead of actually investing on irrigation and majorly on producing crops that we know are good in our countries, we actually decided to change that investment into a corruption undertaking. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to support my brother, Mheshimiwa Tandaza, for this particular amendment, so that You know, biza is another crop which actually do well in parts of the country, especially the semi-arid and arid areas, which can also do well in other parts of the country. Other than the coastal region, it can also do well in some parts of the northern region, and also in Narok, where we come from, Mr. Speaker. So I wish to support this amendment, and I wish to ask the government, and this one on a very serious note, that the government should go back to its original days when it used to know that agriculture was the best earner in our country. It should invest a lot of money, although we devolved agriculture, Mr. Speaker. But even when we look at how the county governments have taken the agricultural sector, Mr. Speaker, they have not put it a very serious, they have not put on a very serious agendas. It is still the national government which can still give serious policies to our county governments, and also the remainder part of the agricultural sector in the national government, we can still deal on very serious issues. Mr. Speaker, remember, Rift Valley has been the breadbasket of food in our country, especially food security and also on other economic sector, Mr. Speaker. But now, as we speak, Mr. Speaker, sectors which we used to rely on, especially tea sector, maize sector, and by red thumb, like from the areas where most of us come from, in Molo, we used to rely majorly on pyrethrum. But, Mr. Speaker, it has died. And it is high time, Mr. Speaker, other than even supporting this particular bill, Mr. Speaker, it is high time also we sit down as a country, and especially as a committee for agriculture in this house, to relook at all those agricultural crops which used to earn our country a lot of money. Look at the sector which, the sugarcane sector, Mr. Speaker, especially in Western and Nyanza region. You cannot go to a shop and in most of the cases you don't find sugar in our shelves. And the reason why is because people normally drink, almost 80% of Kenyans normally use sugar. So you wonder, why is it that there are no sugar on the shelves, and yet the crop itself is not even giving any earnings to the people who are planting it. So, Mr. Speaker, I think it is time we sit down as a country and look at those areas that we know were earning this country, giving our people money, putting money on the pockets of our population. Mr. Speaker, I only wish to say that it is time we sit as a country and create an agenda, especially that deals with agriculture, that will help revert the earnings that we used to have from agriculture and make our country move forward. Mr. Speaker, I support, and I support by saying that we need to relook at many other crops that we have. We look at, if we were to make even miraa a major crop in our country, it can also still earn us a lot of money. We make this macadamia a major crop, it can still earn our country a lot of money. We bring back the pyrethrum, which you, Speaker, even you yourself, you are a major farmer on pyrethrum. But now pyrethrum has lost. We no longer see it in our country. So, Mr. Speaker, we bring it back, our country will move forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support.
Honorable Ogutu Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this noble amendment on crops. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that looking back to, about the development of crop sector, I can say that the country seems to take a reverse gear. For many years, we have seen so many crops that were popular in the 60s, 70s that have now kind of disappeared. And this disappearance is not being complemented with the expansion of the new crops. I'm talking of coffee, Mr. Speaker, in many areas in this country. And a crop, if well embraced, could have converted the economy of this country that has more or less disappeared in a number of areas. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that part of the challenge is because of the technology that is supposed to be developed in these crops. So far, most regions seem to have lost completely any support that was coming from the government. I want to say that if you look at the coffee sector, for instance, there is hardly any support in the rural areas that come from the government, either in terms of the varieties of coffee, or in terms of the seedlings, or even in the terms of the chemicals that were formerly used to ensure that these crops can produce to their best. So, Speaker, I want to focus on one crop, which is tea, that has been a major source of earning in the rural areas, in most regions, especially in Western Kenya, or Kisii, or in my constituency, Machoka Borabu. The crop was popular about 10 years ago. But these days, you find that the farmers are uprooting this crop. And it's unfortunate that they are uprooting the crop, not because they don't want the crop, but because the prices from this crop are so poor to sustain even the investment by the farmers. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that as we amend this particular policy, I think it's important to ask ourselves as a nation, are we really serious about food security in this nation? Are we really serious about increasing employment through agriculture, through value addition, or through farmer involvement at the primary level? And if we can really answer some of those questions, then we can then move the second level and say, how do we improve management of this crop at the market level and even beyond the market level? Because the country has spoken about value addition for many years, but we don't seem to demonstrate that value addition. If you go to the supermarkets, the products you get there from crops are products that have been imported, and sometimes imported after they have used the Kenyan raw materials. What is happening with the value addition in this country? I want to say also that if we invested a lot in value addition, we'll have the reason to export our products to the region, but also we'll have more earnings to the farmer. Now, if you look at this sector, especially the crop sector, you wonder whether the graduates from the universities are adding any value to the production at the farm level, because they are not there. The services that they used to be provided in the 70s and the 80s are not there. Now, even when they have to be from the private sector, from individual consultants, the prices are so high, and even these consultants are not available. So I think it's important that even as we amend this particular part of the sector, we look at so many areas that are really putting this country into a very awkward situation, that we have now had as a country to rely on the neighboring countries on very simple products. And we are innovated even when we don't need some of these products from the region, then they come to spoil the market. So we need to look at so many areas that the Speaker are critical to ensure that our farmers have more interest to invest in crop production. They have more reason to celebrate the crops that they're growing. And this is important because we know that as a country this time, we have an agenda that focuses on food security, an agenda that focuses on manufacturing, and this agenda cannot be of any significant value unless we expand the base level of crop production. So, Speaker, I want to say that I fully support this amendment, and also appeal that even as we move forward as a country, we need to know that agriculture is fundamental, and the crop production is very critical, both in the high potential and the low potential areas, not for food production, but also as a source of income and a sector that actually employs a majority of the people in the rural areas.
Okay.
I support. Thank you.
Honorable Mboni, Mwalika.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and for giving me this opportunity to support this amendment. Mr. Speaker, we need to agree that agriculture is very important in this country. It contributes 30% of GDP, and 75% of Kenyans are engaged in agriculture. Most of the industries we have in this country are agricultural-based, and therefore agriculture, you can see, is very important. Mr. Speaker, in the 70s and 80s, we used to have agricultural essential services and artificial insemination. These services ceased to exist, and they have actually affected production in agriculture. And to me, these ones are very important services which should be revived.
going forward. Mr. Speaker, it's high time this country moved from rain-fed agriculture to irrigation. I'm saying this because where I come from in Ukambani, the two major rivers, Tana River and Ad River, they pass through those areas. But these are areas with a lot of shortage in terms of food. And that water is just going to the ocean. So if we can do agriculture, we can do irrigation in some of these areas, this country will be net exporter of food as opposed to net importer of food. Mr. Speaker, we also need to invest in storage services. Because when you get a lot of food, most of this food goes to waste because we don't have storage services. And therefore, farmers end up making a lot of losses, Mr. Speaker. The other thing, Mr. Speaker, as we support this amendment, we also need to zone this country in terms of crops, which are do well in some of these areas. I have in mind where I come from, things like dengue, a crop like dengue. Dengue does very well. But there's no support, even from government, to support dengue. And to me, this is a livelihood for people from Ukambani. So as we support this amendment, we also need to think about crops which grow from, if it's Western, for example, sugar. Sugar should be supported so that these people can earn livelihood from it. If it's areas like coast, apart from Bisa, they also do mangoes that.
Member for Game.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I just want to remind my colleague whom we were together in Kenyatta University that if he chooses to use the word dengue, he should speak Kiswahili throughout, consistently. Dengue, my brother, as game people would call it, is green grams. So it's good to speak proper English if you choose to speak English. Thank you, sir.
Well, of course, what basically Honorable Elisha is doing is restating the standing orders. So really, it makes a lot of sense that we should speak in one language. Occasionally, of course, there are some terms which can be understood one way or the other. So proceed, Honorable Member, for.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to tell Elisha that I was not in Kenyatta University. I was in the University of Nairobi. So, but he's my friend. I was in the University of Nairobi, not Kenyatta University.
Well, actually,
But thank you for the correction. I think
proceed. Now, Honorable Elisha, you really don't have to make statements that are factually incorrect. You can quite well know where you went yourself, but you cannot know where Honorable Mboni. What correction?
Mr. Speaker,
did you go to Kenyatta University or the University
Mr. Speaker,
of Nairobi?
my first degree was Kenyatta University.
Okay.
The second master's degree was Nairobi University. The third master's degree was USIU. This must be on record. Maybe when he was doing bachelor's, is the time I was doing MBA.
That is not what is
at the University of Nairobi. Thank you.
That is not what is in contention, Honorable Elisha. What is in contention is you alleging that your colleague went to Kenyatta University when he actually can confirm that he was very close to this August House just up here in the University of Nairobi. So that is the issue now. Whatever number of degrees and others that you've had, probably you should have said you went with him to Nairobi University when you are doing your second degree. So that would have made a bit more sense. But now good to know that you have quite a number of those ones.
Thank you very much, Speaker. So what I was saying that, the country should be zoned in terms of crops which do very well. I was saying that if you go to Western Kenya, sugar does very well. Sugarcane does very well. When it comes to Ukambani, Speaker protecting you from this, the dengue and the watermelons, they also do very well. These are crops which will be supported by the government so that people can really earn livelihood. With those few remarks, I support the amendment. Thank you very
much. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also contribute and support this amendment bill. As was said, BIXA is a drought-resistant, is also a pest-free. It's a plant that is widely grown in the coastal areas. Mr. Speaker, when I was in the Agricultural Departmental Committee, we looked at the issue of BIXA in depth, and we discovered that the benefit that this crop brings to the country and to the people of the coastal region is immense, Mr. Speaker. And that is the reason why we must move with speed to be able to pass this amendment in order for the people of Kwale, in particular, to be able to enjoy the benefit. Mr. Speaker, in Kwale there is a factory that deals with BIXA. And this factory is dilapidated because of lack of funds. Obviously, it's a private entity, but with a little support from the government, this factory can be up and running and support the local economy. Mr. Speaker, I'm aware that agricultural sector transformation and growth strategy, which is a 10-year document, which must give effect to Article 43 of the Constitution, which says that every person has a right to be free from hunger. Mr. Speaker, this document is by all standards an excellent document, and the government must move with speed to be able to implement the 9 flagship programs that are listed under ASTGS. Mr. Speaker, such amendment, therefore, would be able to find its way into that document so that it can attract the benefit. The government is actually put in place a lot of programs that would generally eliminate the hunger and also secure the country from the crisis of the perennial crisis of hunger. Mr. Speaker, the other issue we have had to deal with in the agricultural sector was the amendment of the AFA Act of 2013. This act, for some strange reasons, collapsed over 13 bills, 13 acts to form the AFA Act. Now that we have realized that this act is not working, and we are now coming with the Kenya Tea Board, Kenya Sugar Board, Sisal Board, Pyrethrum Board, to be able to make all these boards function and to actually zoom in the particular sector to be able to help the Kenyan farmer, which is most affected at this moment. Mr. Speaker, we also had the issue with the storage, which was a Warehouse System Act, which is in place. We want the government to be able to also move with speed to implement or operationalize the warehouse receipt system, which in fact seeks to help reduce the post-harvest loss. It also helps in price stability, as well as also acts as an instrument to the farmer. In the event that there is an excess supply in the country, the farmer can be able to take the commodity to warehouse receipt system, which is operated privately, to be able to get some advances. Mr. Speaker, we therefore ask the ministry to be able to fast-track the operationalization of warehouse receipt system as well as the Irrigation Act, to be able to give effect to those benefits that are contained therein. With those few remarks, I want to support this amendment. Thank you.
Honorable Wanyonyi.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity. And Mr. Speaker, I can see my chairman of Agriculture and the former chairman of Agriculture Committee in this parliament present. Mr. Speaker, I think we have to take this debate, and I want to thank Honorable Tangaza for coming up with this bill. Mr. Speaker, we have, as a country, we have to be serious. And I'm saying this because I see the chairman of Agriculture Committees here and the former chairman is here, that we have to be serious as a country. And if possible, have some resolutions to be able to streamline the Ministry of Agriculture in doing some of the very important issues that actually been mentioned in the whole, everybody has mentioned here. Mr. Speaker, I think we have to be serious because agriculture is a mainstay of the economy in this country. Secondly, it's actually a foreign earner, used to be. Now it's not. Thirdly, of course, it offers employment to the opportunities of our country, to our youth and our youth. But I think as it is, Mr. Speaker, we have to be serious as a country because in the 70s, 80s, no, 70s, 80s, even and 60s, this country was doing very well. It was actually the best in the region as an agricultural country. Today, you look at some of the crops, apart from what Tangas has just mentioned, there are crops that actually are dying. We have millet. I don't hear about millet. Sorghum, I don't hear about sorghum. Maize is almost gone. You go around the countryside, and if you drive around the countryside, you see whether farmers are serious about planting the maize. We have, for example, dairy farming, which I'm afraid is also dying. You can't believe yourself as a Kenyan. You go to Kibera, you go to any other place here, you see milk coming from Uganda. When actually we used to export milk to the Middle East, we have lost our market in the Middle East. Today, there's a shortage of milk in this country. And then you wonder what is happening to the parastatals that are supposed to be supportive of this particular sector. Madam Speaker, I think we have a serious issue, and I want to ask the chairman of Agriculture here and I'm a committee member that we should actually have an approach, a different approach, and come up with solutions and issues that can be able to streamline the Ministry of Agriculture. What has happened to research centers? Nothing. Some of the research centers are closed down. It's actually, you look at Bukura, for example, in Western Kenya is dead. Extension services, the money, those days when I was in primary 1 and 2, I used to see Minister of Agriculture, Extension Services officers going around helping farmers to be able to improve, the methodology of planting maize and anything else, even potatoes. Today, Mr. Speaker, there's nothing. We even devolved the agriculture to the county. Mr. Speaker, I see nothing happening. I had a particular issue with actually extension services of AI services in my county. And I want to say here, Mr. Speaker, can you protect me because I'm talking very seriously and I can see a Kamukunji behind, I don't know whether it's Tanga or whatever.
Order. You know, you'll be protected, but...
No, but that kind of noise, when you are serious about agriculture, is not allowed in this country.
Members have no capacity of making noise, but Honorable Kositani, if you could consult, if you must, but on a lower tone, that would be fine. So then you are able to listen to Honorable Anyonyi.
Yeah, because they are not serious about agriculture. And that's why I'm saying, I think the chairman of agriculture, please, my brother, Honorable Terrain, I want you to take a whip and get the Minister of Agriculture working. Let's have the extension services, Mr. Speaker, working. Let's have the research centers that were there just colonial days revived. We have a lot of youth who don't have employment. Some of them, you go around, they have done agriculture up to even PhD level, and they are not employed. So what are we doing as a country? Today, and I want to repeat myself here, very seriously, Mr. Speaker, where you find actually Kenya importing milk from Uganda. How do we allow that? We have lost our market in Middle East on potted milk. How do we do that? And because we don't have any support services from our Minister of Agriculture officers. Last year, not least, and I think even look at the budget allocation to the Ministry of Agriculture is below the expectation, and yet is a mainstay of agriculture, mainstay of the economy in this country. What happened? You look at it and you find the budget allocation for agriculture is dwindling, and nobody. Streamline some of these things that actually are affecting us. So Tangaza was right to come up with this particular, but it's going to be discussed here, and God knows what will happen. It will just end up as we discuss here. So let's be serious about the situation, Mr. Speaker, so that we can go to the extent of having some of the crops revived. For example, the crops that you and I had when we were growing up, like cassava. You don't hear about cassava, and it has a lot of effects, a lot of contribution to the economy. Millet, for example, sorghum, is all gone. Huh? Now we're talking about even the sisal itself. This country used to export sisal. It's now uprooted. There's nowhere we have sisal, and yet sisal was actually the main export earner. We used to say export sisal to India. Today, it's not there. You can see it around, you go around, you see plastic, whatever they're having, even ropes. You can't have a rope made of sisal. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that agriculture being what it is today, this House has the obligation to be able to drive so that it can be able to revive the agriculture sector through the research, what have you. And I want to thank once more Honorable Tangaza for having come with this. It's an eye-opener. But let's do something about this agriculture. And therefore, I think my chairman has heard about it, my former chairman is there as well. Let's move forward to be able to revive the agriculture as a sector, as a very important sector in this country. I support.
Honorable Mutunga.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to add my voice to this bill by the Honorable Tandaza, who has actually brought to the fore the importance of this particular crop and why we should support it. Honorable Speaker, Bixa orellana is a very important crop in this country. It has characteristics that we should be very proud of having as an indigenous crop in this country, a crop that can grow in most of the arid areas, arid and semi-arid lands, without the need for water. A crop that is going to grow without the need for any pesticides or disease control, because it is pest resistant and disease resistant. Initial efforts in this particular area were very laudable and they were useful in the sense that they sensitized the people, of course, and the people had been given a livelihood in the 1970s. But a lot happened that led to the death of this particular initiative. Honorable Speaker, it is time to reschedule this crop and have it in the first schedule as one of the crops that should be grown in this country. The death of this particular initiative affected many people in Coast. And I believe that is part of the reason why Honorable Tandasa comes up this time to plead with us to look at how can we get this crop back to the schedule. Honorable Speaker, the world is going natural. Bixa has natural dyes, and these dyes are used to color the foods or food additives. It is used to color the cheese. It can be used to color the salad oils and so on. Being a natural product, I do know that the world is a lot more prefers organic foods, then we have a great advantage as a country to promote this particular crop for various uses. The question is, Honorable Speaker, how do we promote this particular crop? The crop should basically be scheduled, should be put in the first schedule as a crop to be grown in this country. We should initially structure out the research process that will lead to the knowledge of this particular crop, knowledge of the agroecologists that can do better, and also knowledge of the crop development attributes that need to be put in place. We should also anchor this particular crop into the legislation so that it is properly regulated and properly managed. We should therefore open up and outscale the crop to other areas. Because the crop is ASAL adaptive, then it can grow in many other areas. I am of the idea that the crop can do even in eastern Kenya, where I come from, and I believe the areas around Isiolo in my constituency can be very, very useful. What we call Rwanda sublocation in Tigania West. We should therefore develop the requisite literature and sensitize people on this particular crop so that they can take it up as a priority crop. This crop is industrial. And being industrial, it offers great possibilities for us to manufacture or to industrialize this particular crop. But you cannot industrialize a crop unless we have grown it in large quantities for the industries to be set up so that they can absorb the production itself, the product itself. We need to be able to understand how we can produce enough of this material. And to produce enough of the material, we need to be clear that we can get sufficient amounts of planting material. We need to be sure that you can get large proportions of farmers or large number of people applying this particular crop on the farm and tending the crop. And we also need to be able to collect these particular products into a collection unit. The warehouse receipting bill came up to support this particular initiative. The warehousing in this particular country is very, very important in the sense that most of our farmers are small in scale, and therefore they would need to aggregate their produce for them to be able to properly access the market. This crop is important not only for industrialization and job creation, it is also important for creating wealth for our people and also creating wealth for the investors. The investors have a great opportunity to create wealth in terms of investing in processing this particular crop. So now, Speaker, my proposal is that we structure out this particular crop, map out the mixer suitable areas of the country, sensitize the farmers and register them accordingly so that we know who is supposed to produce the crop. And then we should also go further to produce this particular crop and co-locate the production with industries. We should support the production through research and development and also support through extension. Then we should organize the entire value chain so that we know who are the producers, who are the off-takers, how are the off-takers are organized, and how are they supposed to be meeting the demands of the market. We should sensitize the people accordingly to invest in this particular crop. We should have the crop properly anchored into its own board, not necessarily to be part of the crops that are in AFA, or properly anchor it along what we call the industrial crops and the medicinal oils. We should enable the growth and development of the particular crop, Honorable Speaker, and generally support those farmers to be able to produce and sell to the industry. If the industry is not properly organized, then we will not be able to enable these farmers to gain from the crop itself. I'm coming to the support to agriculture in view of organizing the industry. Agriculture in this country is not really in the top priority when it comes to funding. The resource allocation to agriculture, if you look at 2019-2020 budget and the 2018-2019, you realize agriculture is above number 10. I think it's not in the first top 10. If it's not in top 10, then we are not very serious as a country. Because if you look at what happened during COVID, it is only agriculture which grew at 6.4% without any support from anyone. Other industries like health, the health sector grew because most of the money was directed to health in order to be able to contain the COVID. So as a country, we need to position ourselves properly and say that, realize that we have an advantage with a crop here that can grow without requiring pesticides and insecticides. A crop that can do in most of the ASAL areas, and realizing that the country is 75 to 80% ASAL. If we have most of the land, and this crop is suitable to this land, and we need to employ our people, therefore we can set up industries. The market is immeasurable. We cannot satisfy the market. So why don't we take advantage of this? Honourable Speaker, I would like to urge that this House supports this motion, and this motion grows into a legislation that basically is going to look at how do we position this particular crop as one of the major crops that can help us move out of poverty and also create wealth for the people of this country. Honourable Speaker, I support.
Honourable Sotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to also support this very important amendment by Honorable Tandaza to amend the Crops Act 2019. Mr. Speaker, as it has been said by many other members, this is a very, very important crop because of the high economic potential that this crop brings. The crop can be used in many, many other things like flooring materials, cosmetics, shoe polish, ink, silk, and medicinal, and even food coloring. So it is a crop which has high economic potential. But Mr. Speaker, it's very surprising that since this crop was being used for economic purposes from the 70s, the Ministry of Agriculture has never thought to include this crop in the schedule of crops in the Crop Act. That demonstrates the level of laxity in the Ministry of Agriculture. And there are other crops across the country which ideally should be included in the list, and they are not included in the list. So I think something has to be done about this. It means the research arm of the Ministry of Agriculture or the organs within the ministry that is supposed to undertake research are not doing their work. I can give an example like bamboo tree. It's doing so well, like in Vihiga County where I come from. It is doing so well, and it can be used for so many other things, but it is not listed in the Crop Act. Mr. Speaker, I think something has to be done. I'm happy the chairperson of the Agriculture Committee is here. I think this is an issue that the committee should follow up to basically list down the crops which have a high economic value in different regions and find ways of including it in the schedule of crops. You do not have to wait for a member like Mheshimiwa Tandaza to bring a motion so that a crop is included in the list. This is something that should be done automatically through research. But most importantly, Mr. Speaker, that the gazettement of this crop will trigger other processes which are very crucial and which will lead into benefits to the farmers of Kwale and Coast Region. It will trigger the marketing processes, it will trigger the research processes, the distribution, transportation, promotion, and most importantly, Mr. Speaker, even value addition. We want the value addition to be done right here in Kenya before they are exported. And another important thing, Mr. Speaker, this crop does well in warm, humid areas with a temperature of about 32 to 38 degrees. And we know many of our ASAL areas are some of the areas which can benefit from this crop. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a very important amendment, and I want to encourage the Committee of Agriculture to continually look for such kind of crop. And one crop that I really vouch for is the bamboo tree, which has so many benefits, but is not classified as a crop. I think that would be one of the crops that I would urge the committee to consider pushing through the ministry to include. Mr. Speaker, this crop is going to be listed under Part 2 of that schedule, which basically are crops.
Order. What is it, Honorable Ali Haj? What is out of order?
Honorable Speaker, I think as we contribute to a very important amendment such as this, the member must be factual. Honorable Speaker, I'm aware that bamboo is a scheduled crop. Members from this region petitioned bamboo to be in a scheduled crop, and as we speak, Honorable Speaker, bamboo is a scheduled crop. So member should be factual when he is giving his statement. Thank you.
Well, it didn't look like a point of order. It looked like information, but nevertheless, Honorable Sots must be now well informed.
Mr. Speaker, you know, I was saying that because I was looking at the original act, the Crops Act.
Now you know.
And I could not see it listed, but maybe it was put in a gazette notice, which I'm not aware.
Proceed.
But thank you for that information. So, Mr. Speaker, I think this crop is going to be put under Part 2, which is basically crops with the breeding program. And that's very, very significant because it's going to encourage research, development, and most importantly, certification of new variety of this crop. So I think this will be a great step for the people of Kwale and the Coast region. And for that matter, I want to encourage the people of Kwale to continuously support my colleague here, Honorable Tandaza, because of the huge step he has taken in trying to uplift the economies of the people of Kwale. For those few remarks, I support.
Not Honorable Kadhambi or member for Sirisia first, but yes, a member for Sirisia. You are lucky because I was to give to Commissioner Shaban, but I'm sure she will get a chance. You seem to be very fast at, and you know, member for Sirisia, you should be gracious enough to defer to the Commissioner. But anyway, please, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sorry for the Honorable Shaban, because she's our boss, she's our vice chair of the commission. Sorry. But to talk on this, this bill, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Honorable Tandasa for bringing up this motion. Mr. Speaker, our country really depends on agriculture. Agriculture is the backbone of the economy of this country, Mr. Speaker. And to me, Mr. Speaker, even to devolve agriculture to counties has really created many problems to the farmers of this country, Mr. Speaker. Like tea, Mr. Speaker, tea sector is really suffering as we speak. It's going to the same like sugarcane farmers, Mr. Speaker. The president of this country, Mr. Speaker, appoints ministries or ministers to support him to run this country, Mr. Speaker. But sometimes the ministers who are appointed or the ministry officers fail to perform to bring this country down, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, these days we don't have extension officers to check on farmers in the field as it used to be before, like during President Jomo Kenyatta's time and President Moi's time. When we were children, we used to see extension officers visiting farmers to know the problem of the farmer so that they improve on production, Mr. Speaker. But as we speak, the extension officers are not there. Means we are performing very poorly in agriculture, Mr. Speaker, due to lack of support. We are importing unnecessary things that are supposed to be produced by our farmers in this country, Mr. Speaker, like eggs. We are importing eggs from neighboring countries like Uganda. We are importing milk from neighboring countries like Uganda. Instead of us promoting the farmers like other countries do to support their farmers, instead to support the country, Mr. Speaker. Coffee, we are doing very badly just because of middlemen that are in the middle trying to, to run this country down, trying to steal from the farmer. Like as we speak, Mr. Speaker, maize sector, government has not brought in subsidized fertilizer to the farmers. Let me speak to farmers of maize from Rift Valley, from Bungoma, where we farm maize, and we always get fertilizer, farmers get fertilizer at a reasonable price. But now the fertilizer's price has gone up, 3,300 shillings per bag of 50 kilos instead of 1,800 that the government bring to the farmers, Mr. Speaker. So this will bring our people back for us to import maize from outside the country, and yet farmers can sustain this country with food. So, Mr. Speaker, the ministers that are appointed, especially the Minister of Agriculture, should support this government to make sure that everything that is supposed, like this, what Honorable Tandasa has brought, this crop, to support it. Because we are, even us, we are, as members of parliament, Mr. Speaker, we are earning salary because of, from the farmers. The money that we earn, we don't produce money to pay ourselves for our salaries. Mr. Speaker, we just earn from the common mwananchi who is a farmer out there. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm urging members of parliament to deeply come out and support the agricultural sector of this country, Mr. Speaker, and especially this project that Honorable Tandasa has brought. We are to support it so that we can get more money to support this country, Mr. Speaker. I think for those few remarks, I want to thank Honorable Tandasa for bringing this, and as a House, we need to support it. And we need to support the government fully so that this country can stand in each and everything, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Let's have Honorable Katana Kahindi.
Asante, Bwana Spika. Kwanza nataka kumpongeza mjumbe wa Matuga, Kasim Tandaza, kwa kuleta mabadiliko katika mswada huu. Bwana Spika, wakati umefika sasa wa Wizara ya Kilimo kufanya utafiti kwa kila mmea katika majimbo yetu ili wajue kwamba ni mti gani ambao ama mmea gani unaweza kutumika kuzalisha na kuleta mapato katika eneo haya na nchi kwa jumla. Bwana Spika, kwa muda mrefu mimea kama kahawa, chai, korosho, mnazi ilikuwa ikisifika kwa mazao yake. Lakini kwa sasa mimea hii imefifia. Na taasisi nazo ambazo zilikuwa zinafanya utafiti wa mimea hii pia nazo zimefifia. Bwana Spika, tunajua kwamba kilimo ndio uti wa mgongo wa nchi hii. Serikali inatakana kuwekeza ama kuweka bajeti kubwa kwa Wizara ya Kilimo ili utafiti ufanywe ya kuweza kusaidia wakulima wa mimea hii. Kule Pwani tumekuwa na mmea wa mnazi, tumekuwa na mkorosho na biksa. Mimea hii imekuwa ikileta mapato, lakini tangu kiwanda cha mkorosho kifungwe na biksa, hali ya uchumi ya jimbo la Pwani imerudi nyuma. Ni jambo la aibu kuwa kwa sasa tunaagiza tui la nazi kutoka nchi ya Malaysia, na ili hali Pwani tuna mmea huu ambao unaweza kutumika kuleta mazao. Vile vile mimea hii mitatu kule Pwani, kama serikali inaweza kufanya utafiti na kuwekeza, tunaweza kutoa suluhu la kutokuwa na ajira katika jimbo hilo na Kenya nzima. Kwa muda mrefu, Bwana Spika, ikifika wakati wa uchaguzi, watu wengi huja Pwani na kuhadaa wa Pwani kwamba watawekeza katika sehemu ya mnazi, kufufua kiwanda cha mkorosho na kufufua biksa. Lakini baada ya uchaguzi ukienda, mimea hii bado haijatambulika tena. Kwa hivyo nataka kuunga mkono mabadiliko ya mswada huu. Vile vile biksa, mkorosho na mnazi iletwe katika abara ya kwanza ya mimea ambayo inaweza kutumika na kuzalisha na kuleta mapato katika taifa letu. Bwana Spika, mnazi peke yake unaweza kuajiri zaidi ya watu 10,000. Lakini kwa muda mrefu watu wamekuwa wakiongea kuhusu bidhaa moja ya mnazi ambao ni pombe peke yake. Na mnazi una zaidi ya bidhaa 11. Unaweza kutumika. Mwanzo lile fuvu la nazi tumeona unaweza kutumia kutengeneza vifungo. Kwa hivyo kama serikali ya kitaifa na serikali za kaunti, kwa sababu kilimo imegatuliwa, tunaweza kuleta mitambo, tunaweza kuajiri vijana wengi waweze kujikimu kimaisha, kuliko kuwapatia maslasha wakafyeke na kutoa kusafisha mitaro ya maji machafu. Zile pesa ambazo zinatumika kule zinaweza kutumika kuwekeza kwa kilimo. Bwana Spika, utakumbuka kwamba mti wa mnazi katika nchi ya Malaysia umefanya nchi hiyo kukua kwa kiuchumi, lakini serikali haijakuwa na nafasi au haijafanya utafiti muhimu wa kuhakikisha kwamba miti hii inaweza kutuletea pato, hasa wakati huu wa ugonjwa wa COVID. Ni upande wa kilimo peke yake ambao umeweza kusaidia wananchi kujikimu kimaisha. Kwa hivyo naunga mkono biksa kuletwa katika abara ya kwanza ya mimea, na vile vile pia mnazi na korosho pia iweze kuwekwa katika abara ya kwanza, ili tupate pesa za kufanyia utafiti na pia kufanyia masoko katika nchi na nchi za geni. Kwa hivyo ninaunga mkono huu, Bwana Spika. Asante sana, na naunga mkono kwa mabadiliko ya mswada huu. Asante.
Commissioner Shaban.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia fursa hii. Mimi pia nijiunge na wenzangu kumpongeza ndugu yetu Mheshimiwa Tandaza, mbunge wa Matuga, kwa kuleta mswada huu ambao unarekebisha sheria za mimea hapa nchini. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza ningependa kutoa risala zangu za rambirambi kutoka kwangu pamoja na jamii yangu yote kwa ujumla, Taveta nzima, eneo bunge la Taveta na Taita Taveta kwa ujumla, kwa vile bunge hili la 12 tumepata kipigo mno. Tumepoteza wabunge wengi Mheshimiwa Spika, na tunawaombea, tunajua wametutangulia mbele ya haki, na kule wanakokwenda Mwenyezi Mungu awaweke roho zao pahali pema peponi. Mheshimiwa Spika, mti huu mrangi ama mbiksa kama vile unavyoitwa kule pwani ni mti ambao ni wa muhimu sana, na hizi mbegu zake ni za muhimu sana. Mheshimiwa Spika, si bure tu Mheshimiwa Tandaza amelivalia njuga jambo hili, kwa sababu eneo lake haswa kule Kwale ndio kiwanda cha kuhakikisha kuwa rangi hii mmea huu wa mbiksa unaweza kupatia watu faida. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni sawa tu kuwa mti huu mrangi ama matunda haya ya mbiksa na mbegu zake ziweze kuorodheshwa kwenye mimea mingine ya muhimu hapa nchini. Mheshimiwa Spika, si jambo la kutosha tu kuorodhesha. Orodha hizi zikitoka ni kuwa mimea hii lazima ipatiwe kipaumbele, na haswa serikali ya kitaifa na serikali ya ugatuzi, serikali zetu za ugatuzi ziangalie kuwa mimea hii inapatiwa umuhimu, haswa kwenye kuongeza na kuwasaidia wakulima waweze kupata mbegu zinazofaa na kuwafunza ukulima wa kisasa. Manake kule mashinani zaidi sana wakulima wengine wanalima tu kiholela holela, kwa sababu hawapatiwi mwelekeo kwenye njia za kulima za kisasa ili waweze kupata haki yao kwenye jasho lao katika ukulima. Mheshimiwa Spika, maeneo mengi yana vyakula ama ina mimea tofauti tofauti ambayo ina faida hapa nchini. Tukitaja kuwa kuna mikorosho, kuna nazi, kuna ndizi kutoka maeneo yetu kule upande wa Taveta na maeneo mengi hapa nchini, vile vile mihogo, viazi vitamu, Mheshimiwa, na hata vile ilivyotajwa kuwa dengu ambayo inapandwa hapa nchini, na vitu vingine vingi sana ikiwemo kahawa pamoja na chai. Mheshimiwa Spika, si siri kuwa vitu vyote vinavyopandwa hapa nchini ni vitu vya umuhimu na vinatumika ulimwengu mzima, isipokuwa wakulima wasipopatiwa ujuzi wa kuhakikisha kuwa wameweza kulima kwa njia za kisasa na kuhakikisha kuwa mavuno yao yatakuwa yale ambayo yako ya juu, yanatoa vyakula vile ama ukulima unaotoa mazao yale ambayo yanahakikishwa yako na grade zile za juu. Mheshimiwa Spika, inakuwa shida kwa mkulima kupata haki yake na jasho lake alilolitoa kuweza kupata haki yake kupitia kwa njia hiyo. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukweli ni kwamba hapa nchini mambo na kilimo ni mambo ambayo ndio ya muhimu zaidi, ndio yamewezesha wazazi kujiendeleza mbele, kusomesha watoto na kuweza kubadilisha masuala ya uchumi hapa nchini. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiangalia hivi majuzi, kuna vyakula, kuna vitu ambavyo vinaweza kukaa sana na kuna vile ambavyo ni mimea ambayo mazao yake hayawezi kukaa kwa muda mrefu. Kwa mfano, nataka kuzungumzia swala la ndizi ambazo zinatoka kule kwenye maeneo yetu. Utakuta kuwa ni kitu ambacho hakikai kwa muda mrefu katika moja ya mimea ile ambayo tunajua itakuwa na matatizo. Tunajua kuwa wenye kupanda mahindi yana muda yanaweza kukaa, lakini juu ya hapo pia mahindi ni lazima yapatiwe bei ambayo inayostahili, na vile vile serikali yetu iweze kuhakikisha kuwa wafanyikazi wa wenye taaluma hizo za kilimo waweze kuwasaidia wakulima waweze kupata haki yao. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukienda nchi za nje utakuta kuwa kahawa na hata chai inayotumika kule nzuri zaidi ni ile ya kutoka Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, kahawa yetu saa nyingine wanaichanganya na zingine, lakini zaidi sana kahawa ya Kenya inasifika kila mahali. Ukienda Amerika utakuta ndio inasifika, ukienda kila mahali duniani utakuta inasifika. Vile vile chai yetu wameichukua, wameenda wameichanganya na chai zingine ambazo hazina utamu kama hii ya Kenya. Lakini isitoshe ni kuwa chai yetu pia ulimwengu mzima inajulikana. Lakini swali ni kuwa, je, wakulima wetu wanapata haki yao? Hilo ndio swali kubwa ambalo lazima serikali yetu tusaidie hapo, ili wakulima wetu waweze kupata haki yao na sio wale ambao wanaofanya biashara kwa mimea hii na mavuno haya ya hawa wakulima ndio wanafaidika peke yao. Mheshimiwa Spika, mbiksa ama mrangi ni inaonekana wazi kuwa ni mbegu ambazo zinazotumika kutengeneza rangi, hata inatumika kwenye hata chakula, vitu tofauti tofauti ambavyo binadamu anaweza kutumia, na hata vitu vya urembo vya kina mama. Lakini juu ya hapo, kitu ambacho kinaweza kutumika kwenye chakula ni kitu ambacho serikali ingekipatia nguvu sana, ili kiwanda kile kiweze kujengwa upya, ili wakulima wa maeneo hayo na hata wakulima wengine waweze kuhimizwa kuweza kulima na kuvuna mbiksa ama mrangi, mbegu za mrangi. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni dhahiri ya kuwa Kenya tumezoea kufanya ukulima wa kutegemea mvua, na mvua ikichelewa tu kidogo basi kumeharibikiwa kote. Serikali kuu imekuwa ikiweka mkazo wa kuhakikisha kuwa wamejenga madimbu ya maji kila mahali, lakini kisha kuwa madimbu hayo ya maji kama yatatengenezwa, yawe yakitengenezwa kila maeneo, ili wakulima wote hata wenye kutoka maeneo makame waweze pia kupata maji, kwa sababu maji, mvua ikinyesha basi tunapata mafuriko, inaharibu kila kitu, inaua watu, inaua mifugo, inaua mimea, na wakati kuwa kama maji haya yakitumika vizuri yangeweza kutuletea faida wakati wa ukame. Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka sana kumalizia kwa kumuunga mkono na kumpongeza kaka yangu Tandaza kwa kuleta mswada huu ambao utarekebisha orodha ya mimea ambayo imetajwa kwenye sheria za mimea hapa nchini. Naunga mkono.
What is out of order, Honorable Duale?
Mr. Speaker, I'm standing on Standing Order 95, and we have been debating this bill for a number of hours, and it's a lot of repetition. Will I be in order that we move to the next important constitutional bill also? Because Mr. Speaker, can you tell the member for the Grati, we are not in Kawangware market. We are in the house. So I'm talking to the Speaker. You can't heckle me. Okay, my very good friend, I'm only asking what is provided in the standing order. Will I be in order to call the mover to reply so that we go to the next bill? Because we can't discuss one bill whole Thursday because of the time factor and the COVID regulations. And I have been listening to members that we are more of repetitive. If that will be in order, Mr. Speaker, and you put that to the House.
Very well. You know, Honorable Duale, you are in order to ask. But asking, I shall have to confirm from the members who are here whether that is their mood, actually. Honorable members, I will put the question that the mover now be called to reply. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. Clearly, the nays have it. I guess Honorable Duale is a balance, because the members actually, within the time the members remaining, could maybe moderate and we have it fast-tracked in a sense so that we move to the next. But I also can tell the members from Coast particularly have a keen interest on this, and they have been allowed for some time. Even the other members as well, because they are also Kenyans. Members from Coast and the other members, you will get a chance, certainly. Let's start with Honorable Guna.
Thank you, Speaker, for the chance given to me. Mr. Speaker, I'll be very brief because I understand so many members want to contribute to this motion. Mr. Speaker, allow me to thank Honorable Tagasa for bringing up this bill. And it has come to my attention that majority of the Kenyans actually don't know what is Bixa crop. Personally, I have been seeing it in many places in Coast, especially Kilifi, but I've never actually known the economic importance of this crop, Mr. Speaker. Recalling the President's Big Four agenda, one of them was food production and another one was manufacturing. Mr. Speaker, if you look at this crop, the Bixa crop, it is complementing the two industries of food production and also the manufacturing. We are talking of a crop that is drought resistant. And automatically, Mr. Speaker, you will agree with me in the advent of global warming, actually rains have become very unpredictable. And we need actually to invest more as a country in drought resistant crops. This is one of them. And actually I'm challenging the Minister of Agriculture to list more so that we can bring economic benefit to our country. Mr. Speaker, a lot of crops actually, crop failure have been attributed to pests, to diseases. This crop is disease-free, it is pest-free, and you can literally plant it and only need to wind it, Mr. Speaker. So this is one of the key crops actually which can contribute towards our food production and many other aspects of manufacturing. Recalling that, and I think it is high time we revise the percentage the agriculture sector is contributing to our economy. I've been hearing of 28%, 30%, but Mr. Speaker, it is high time we get the state agencies actually to clarify on this percentage agriculture is contributing. Mr. Speaker, Bixa seed, as we discussed of it, the seed itself, once it is extracted, the waste is actually, I've just learned, it produces fertilizer, one of the key economic benefits. Number two, this Bixa crop, I've learned that it is used in food coloring, which is commonly used in Coast and also many other countries in the world. For example, China, last year, I recall they did a lot of research on this crop. If at all we are serious with this kind of crop, we need to invest a lot in the research. Cosmetic industry, which is not even very common in our country. We heavily depend on Western world to come up with proper cosmetics, like France is one of them. Mr. Speaker, if this crop is nurtured and proper legislation is enacted, I think we can grow our cosmetic industry in the country. And in the advent of climate change, Mr. Speaker, we need to invest in agricultural research. One of the key things, and I recall in my constituency where there is a lot of mangoes now, actually in February, there's a lot of mango, there's bamboo tree, and a lot of things actually happening now. There's a lot of waste. We need to invest in storage facilities. Mr. Speaker, we may be producing a lot, even if the Bixa is planted in large scale. We produce a lot, yet we don't have storage facilities. We will not achieve the main objective of this crop. Research, most of the things we have actually legislated very well. Bamboo tree is one of the common tree we have discussed. Cotton, I'm a big beneficiary of cotton because my grandfather used to grow cotton, but I no longer see it in Ukambani. Mr. Speaker, we need to invest on this research. And this is the high time actually the laxity we are seeing in agricultural ministry to do away with this laxity and come up with all the schedule, the crops which can benefit our economy needs to be scheduled. Marketing is another aspect, Mr. Speaker. Yes, we do a lot of production. We do produce coffee and tea and many other crops that we are exporting. They are facing serious competition across the globe. So, Mr. Speaker, we need also to do this marketing properly to ensure if we legislate and also pass this bill, most of our crops are not going to be phased out by the competitors from other countries. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, let me say that I support and thank you so much, Honorable Tagaza, for bringing up this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Let's have Honorable Boga Menza.
Asante sana Bwana Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuweza kuchangia mswada huu wa mabadiliko ya sheria ya mimea ya mwaka 2019. Na pili, nataka nimshukuru Mheshimiwa Tandaza Sawa, mjumbe wa Matuga, kwa kuweza kuleta mswada huu wa mabadiliko mbele ya bunge hili ili uweze kujadiliwa na ule mmea wa mrangi au biksa uweze kutambulika na uweze kuwekwa katika ile bara ya kwanza kama mimea mingine muhimu katika Jamhuri ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, mmea wa mrangi ni mmea muhimu sana kwa watu wa pwani. Mmea huu unafanya vizuri sana katika maeneo ya Lamu, unafanya vizuri sana katika maeneo ya Kwale, katika eneo bunge la Mheshimiwa Tandaza, katika eneo la Tiwi. Na ni katika pwani nzima ni katika eneo la Kwale ambapo tuko na kiwanda kidogo cha kibinafsi ambacho kinatumika katika kuongeza thamani ya mmea huu. Kiwanda kile ni kiwanda kidogo sana. Ni kiwanda cha kibinafsi ambacho kimekosa ufadhili, na pili kimeweza pia kukosa ule mmea wenyewe kama fida ili kiweze kusaidia kiwanda kile kikue. Juzi katika maeneo ya Lamu tuliona wakulima wameingia barabarani, wakulima wa mmea huu wa mrangi wakiandamana kwa sababu ya kukosa soko la mmea wao. Na ukiangalia mtu atoke maeneo ya Lamu katika eneo la Mpeketoni, abebane na mmea ule kutoka kule aende karibu kilomita 600 mpaka katika eneo la Tiwi ndio apate kiwanda kile kidogo ili aweze kuuza mmea wake. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukikumbuka huko nyuma tumekuwa na shirika letu la ndege la Kenya Airways ambalo limekuwa likiyumba, halipati faida yoyote, lakini tuliona serikali kuu iliingilia na kupeana mgao ili shirika lile lisiweze kuzama. Na tunaiomba serikali pia, tunajua kiwanda kile ni cha kibinafsi, tunaiomba serikali kuu iweze kuiangalia kiwanda kile hata kama ni cha kibinafsi, kiweze kukisaidia, kiweze kuinuka na kiweze kuwa kiwanda cha kileo ili kiweze kufanya kazi kubwa na kiweze kutoa ajira nyingi kwa watu wetu wa pwani na hususan watu wetu kutoka eneo la Tiwi na Kwale kwa jumla. Mheshimiwa Spika, mmea wa mrangi kama tulivyosikia kutoka kwa watangulizi ni mmea ambao unastahimili jua, ni mmea ambao unastahimili magonjwa, ni mmea ambao unafanya vizuri sana katika maeneo ya joto kama vile eneo la pwani. Mmea huu Mheshimiwa Spika, ukisikia mrangi, hata wakati kabla teknolojia haijakuwa vile, mmea huu kina mama zetu kule pwani walikuwa wakitumia kama kipodozi. Ile tunaiita kwa jina maarufu linajulikana kama lipstick, huko pwani ilikuwa inatumika kabla mambo ya kileo yaweze kufika. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, kina mama zetu wengi ambao tunawaona, warembo wetu wengi, wake zetu wengi, wote wanatumia vipodozi hivi. Ikiwa mrangi huu, mmea huo wa mrangi utapatiwa kipaumbele, tuna imani kuwa tutakweza kuzalisha na kutoa vipodozi vyetu sisi wenyewe kama Jamhuri ya Kenya, ikatosheleza warembo wetu hapa Kenya na pia tukaweza kuuza katika nchi za ng'ambo. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna umuhimu mkubwa kwa serikali kuwekeza zaidi katika mmea huu, na kama tulivyosema ni kwanza lazima ianzie katika sheria iliyoletwa mbele yetu na Mheshimiwa Tandaza, na baada hapo lazima ipewe msukumo na ipewe nguvu na serikali kuu, kwa sababu tukiangalia utafiti wake kwanza
kwa sasa uko chini sana. Utafiti wa Biksa au hiyo Mrangi uko chini, na si Mrangi peke yake, utafiti wa mimea mingi sana ambayo inafanya vizuri katika eneo la pwani imedidimia. Tukiangalia tulikuwa na vituo vya utafiti kama Kari ambavyo leo vimefungwa na mpaka zile ardhi zao zimekuwa zinauziwa watu wa kibinafsi. Tumekuwa na mashirika kama ADC kule pwani na jamhuri nzima ya Kenya ambayo yalikuwa yakipatiana nguvu yakifanya utafiti ili zile vilimo vyetu muhimu viweze kusaidika, lakini pia leo hizo ADC zimefariki, hatujui zilikwenda wapi. Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi kama wapwani tunatambulika zaidi kwa mmea wa mnazi. Tunatambulika zaidi kwa mmea wa mkorosho. Mimea hii ndio inatufanya sisi tutambulike kama wapwani. Sisi tukiwa wadogo tulipokuwa tunakuwa mkorosho ulikuwa unafanya vizuri sana katika eneo la pwani. Tulikuwa na kiwanda kilichokuwa kikisimamiwa na serikali kuu kikijulikana kama Kenya Cashew Nuts Limited. Kiwanda hichi kilikuwa kimepatiana motisha kwa wakulima wadogo wadogo wengi katika eneo la pwani waliokuwa wakipanda mikorosho kwa wingi. Lakini leo Mheshimiwa Spika, ni jambo la kusikitisha na kutamausha kuona mmea wa mkorosho umesaulika, umekufa kwa sababu kile kiwanda muhimu ambacho tulikuwa tunakitegemea hakifanyi kazi tena. Jambo la kutushangaza Mheshimiwa Spika, baada ya kiwanda kile cha korosho kufariki kule pwani, kilikuja kufufuka huku pande ya Thika, ambao leo mtu anayekuza korosho pwani inabidi korosho ile inunuliwe na wale watu wa katikati waweze kuja kuuza katika viwanda ambao kiko eneo la Thika ambacho kinajulikana kama Macadamia something. Ambao Mheshimiwa Spika, hili ni jambo la kusikitisha ikiwa mkorosho ule ambao ulikuwa unakulia pale pwani kiwanda kiko karibu, lakini leo mkulima anaingia gharama kubwa na ndio inafanya korosho zetu zinakuwa ghali mno kwa sababu ya usafiri mrefu. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukija katika mmea wa mnazi ambao tumeambiwa hapa uko na faida zaidi ya 11. Apart from ile baada ya ile faida kubwa ambayo inajulikana kuwa pombe ya mnazi ndio inajulikana zaidi, lakini kuna mafuta ya nazi ambayo yanajulikana pia kama tiba ya kutibu saratani ambao tumeambiwa na watafiti. Tuna mnazi unatoa makuti ambao ukienda katika hoteli zetu za kifahari utaona vile mapaa yake yameezekwa na makuti ambayo inaonekana nadhifu na kupendeza. Ukija pwani Mheshimiwa, ukiangalia mnazi, ukiukata mnazi ule leo unatoa mbao nyingi sana ambazo zinatumika katika maeneo ya pwani katika kufanya mambo ya kujenga na mambo ya mbao. Kwa hivyo mnazi uko na faida kubwa sana, lakini ni mmea mmoja ambao Mheshimiwa Spika ulisauliwa na serikali yetu. Hatuja kuwa na hata kiwanda kidogo cha kuweza kushughulikia mmea wa mnazi. Mheshimiwa Spika, kama tulivyosikia hapa, kuna umuhimu ya sisi kama bunge na kupitia kamati ya ukulima ambao tunajua ukulima ndio uti wa mgongo wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. Tunajua ukulima unatoa karibu 30% katika bajeti yetu ya serikali kuu. Tunajua ukulima umeajiri zaidi au kuna watu zaidi 70% ya Wakenya ambao wanategemea ukulima kwa maisha yao ya kila siku. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo la kutushangaza ni kuwa wakati tunasoma budget au wakati mipango ya serikali inapangwa, tunaona kuwa ukulima umeorodheshwa katika namba ya 10. Tumepatiana mambo ya barabara, tumepatiana mambo ya usalama, tumepatiana mambo chungu zima mbele, lakini uti wa mgongo wa nchi hii ambao tunajua 70% ya Wakenya wanategemea imeorodheshwa katika namba 10. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tunaomba kamati yetu ambayo inahusika na mambo ya ukulima iangalie jambo hili, kwa sababu sisi ndo tunapitisha bajeti ya serikali. Ni sisi lazima tuamue kuwa kama tunaona umuhimu wa ukulima, ni lazima tuamue kama bunge la kitaifa kuwa tuwekeze zaidi katika nyanja ile ya ukulima ili ukulima urudi kama ulivyokuwa hapo zamani. Mheshimiwa Spika, tumezungumza mambo ya mabawa au zile tunaita kwa kizungu ukiniruhusu dams. Tumekuwa serikali imewekeza zaidi katika kuhakikisha tumejenga madimbu yale ili mvua itakapokuwa imekuja yale maji yasipotee bure. Sisi kama wapwani tuko na bahati kuu. Tuko na mito miwili mikuu katika Jamhuri ya Kenya, mto wa Tana ambao unaanzia milimani na unaishia katika bahari ya Hindi. Tuko na mto wa Athi River ambao unapitia maeneo ya Ukambani na unafika paka pale Sabaki, unateremka paka bahari ya Hindi. Lakini wakati tumepata mvua ya kutosha, maji haya yote yanaishia katika bahari ya Hindi. Lakini tukiweza kujenga vidimbwi hivi katikati huko, tunaweza tukachuma maji yale na yakatusaidia wakati wa ukame, na tukahakikisha ukulima unakuwa katika maeneo mengi sana katika Jamhuri ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika pwani tumekuwa na mmea wa pamba. Tulikuwa na kiwanda kule Lamu kinajulikana kama Lamu Cotton Granary. Kiwanda kile pia kimekufa na kilikuwa kikipatiana mchango mkubwa sana kwa wakulima wadogo wadogo wa pamba kutoka maeneo ya Mpeketoni. Tumekuwa na kiwanda cha Sisal pale Vipingo Sisal, kilikuwa kimeajiri zaidi ya watu 5,000. Leo kiwanda kile kimekufa na yale mashamba yote makubwa leo yamerudi mikononi kwa watu binafsi, wanagawanya na kuuzia wananchi. Kwa hayo Mheshimiwa, naunga mkono hoja hii. Asante sana.
Nabukerie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and the opportunity to contribute to this amendment is highly appreciated. And Mr. Speaker, I do rise to support a good friend of mine, the Honorable Kasim Tandaza Sawa, on this amendment that he's making to the crops bill. Mr. Speaker, it is very clear that the Honorable Tandaza did not waste his school fees at Alliance High School. In fact, in moving this bill, we were totally impressed by the amount of research that had gone into his effort to amend the crops bill. And for that, I must commend the Honorable Kasim Tandaza Sawa. Mheshimiwa, the Honorable Speaker, I've got to say that from what is coming out is that this crop by the name Bixa, which is locally referred to as Mrangi, is important to the economy of the coast. But not only for the economy of the coast, Mr. Speaker, but it looks like it can be a crop that will be very meaningful to the economy of the entire country. Mr. Speaker, I think the opportunity that we have been given here in this amendment is an opportunity for us to look holistically at the whole issue of agriculture in this country, Mr. Speaker. It is a point where we can start questioning ourselves in how we have been conducting the business of agriculture in this country, because we are always told that you should not look at someone's priorities by how they list them. We should look at someone's priorities by how they prioritize the investment into these priorities, Mr. Speaker. But we have not been prioritizing an investment on our agriculture, Mr. Speaker. I think it is important, as we are looking at this amendment, to rethink the whole model of agriculture in this country. Let's think about our rain-fed agriculture, Mr. Speaker. It always puzzles me, Mr. Speaker, that we are able to take a commodity like petroleum all the way from coast at the port to the farthest corners of this country, that if you wanted petroleum in any corner of this country, you only need to drive to a petrol station and you shall be able to refuel. Mr. Speaker, it puzzles me why we have not been able to take advantage of the Lake Victoria, which is the largest freshwater lake in Africa. In the same way that we are able to pipe petroleum, Mr. Speaker, it puzzles me how we are not able to pipe water to the far-flung corners of this country, Mr. Speaker. And that is why I'm saying it is an important time to relook at how we do agriculture in this country. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this amendment, understanding that this crop called Bixa, as we are being told, is drought resistant, Mr. Speaker. It is disease resistant. It is pest resistant, Mr. Speaker. We are also understanding that by listing it as a cash crop, we shall be forcing our government to start investing a bit more on this crop. And by investment, I'm talking about a through-the-line investment, Mr. Speaker, because we are told that this crop is a crop that doesn't go to waste. Even as we extract products from the seed, we understand that there is much more that can be done in terms of value addition, Mr. Speaker, to this crop that would mean more economically beyond just the traditional agriculture of the crop, Mr. Speaker. By relooking at our agriculture, Mr. Speaker, we shall be speaking to the issue of the Big Four. Mr. Speaker, in my critique of the Big Four agenda, I understand that it is important that we take cognizance of the need for health, the need for urban housing and housing, Mr. Speaker. But I do believe that if we took a single big one in the name of agriculture, we shall be addressing all the other 3 big 4 agendas by just investing in agriculture, Mr. Speaker. If we invested properly in agriculture, our people who are farmers predominantly will be able to get an extra buck. With an extra buck, the population will be able to pay a bit more for their health insurance, thus supporting the big health agenda. The same people will have some disposable income, meaning that they will be able to improve their livelihood, meaning that they will be able to invest a bit more in the quality of housing that they do, Mr. Speaker. That by just addressing a big one in the big 4, we shall have addressed all the other big 4 agendas, including industrialization, Mr. Speaker. Because if we invested well in our agriculture, we shall end up going into value addition. We shall end up in cottage industries, Mr. Speaker. And with this, we shall also be growing industrialization in this country. Mr. Speaker, it was important to me that this crop is disease resistant. It was not lost to me that this crop is pest resistant. So I think, Mr. Speaker, even as we are talking about Bixa, it is time we stopped being cowards as a house and started looking at other crops, Mr. Speaker, that would be beneficial to this country that are of the nature of this crop that is called Bixa. Our organic traditional foods, Mr. Speaker, we're in a situation where our country's health system is overburdened with cases of cancer, Mr. Speaker. We are learning that it is out of what we eat that we are ending up with a morphology of people's bodies to a point where they are not resistant to some of these diseases. We are honored this morning to have in chamber a very esteemed doctor by the name Dr. Nyikal, who I'm sure will be contributing to this later, but he would advise us and tell us that it is out of the things that we are eating, most of which are not organic foods, that we are ending up with the cases of cancer, Mr. Speaker. But even as we look at crops for consumption, we've also got to drop our cowardice, Mr. Speaker. Maybe it is time we started looking at other disease-resistant crops, other pest-resistant crops, Mr. Speaker. And I would like to say that I feel it is a time we also considered the legalization of marijuana in this country, Mr. Speaker. I'm talking this knowing and understanding well that marijuana, just as Bixa is disease resistant. It is pest resistant. But even just as Bixa is, we understand the through the line benefits of a crop like marijuana, which would be produced for its industrial use and medicinal use. Mr. Speaker, every time we bring up the issue of legalizing the farming of marijuana, we realize that there is so much pushback because people are resistant to the recreational use of marijuana. But Mr. Speaker, by legalizing a crop like marijuana, we are not calling for the recreational use of such a crop. In fact, what we are doing is calling for us to open our minds to explore the benefits that can accrue from farming a crop that is not affected by drought, is not affected by pests, is not affected by disease, but can also benefit us through the line from the industrial use of hemp all the way to the medicinal use of cannabis, Mr. Speaker. This is a discussion that we will now need to reopen as we have a holistic look at how we tackle agriculture, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I do believe that if this House was to put its mind into this issue of rethinking our agriculture holistically, then we would find benefit in crops such as Bixa and crops that are drought resistant, pest resistant, and disease resistant, like I have mentioned, marijuana. Mr. Speaker, the opportunity to contribute to this has been very well appreciated, and I do support that we amend the crops bill in favor of what has been proposed by the Honorable Tandaza Kasim Sawa. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Nyikal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to talk about this bill. Mr. Speaker, let me start by appreciating the honorable member who actually has proposed this bill about a very, very important crop.
Mr. Speaker, this plant known as achiot, which is from the language, Nahuatl language of the Nahua people in Mexico, where it is actually originated from, or Bixa, which is from the name Bixa orellana, and that is the name of a Spanish explorer who actually explored Mexico and brought this crop to the notice of the botanical world. So, Speaker, is an important crop. It was introduced in this country in the 70s, particularly Lamu and Kwale, where it has actually been grown, although the use now is going down. And people are now resorting to use it as a buffer plant because it's also famed to ward off animals. And that's not how we should use such an important plant. But it's not only grown in Kenya, it's grown in other countries, Mexico, Peru, in Indonesia, India, mainly in the tropical areas. Mr. Speaker, this shrub is a hardy crop, disease-free, pest-free, and drought-resistant. Everybody has said that, meaning, Mr. Speaker, that farmers will be able to grow it at a lower cost, even in dry areas. You will not need a lot of fertilizers or pesticides. And therefore, we should actually promote this crop. Its importance is in the pigment bixin, which is actually, as my colleague had said, I should say, is actually harmless, no carcinogenic effect, but it's extremely useful, particularly in food coloring, in medicines, again, in coloring of medicines, and also in cosmetics, as we know. Mr. Speaker, this makes it to be in high demand world over. And even the pods itself are actually used in the manufacture of fertilizer. And we are not promoting this crop, which would therefore, because of the demand worldwide, actually be a great income earner. And we could not only use it just to export the pods or export the pigment itself, but we could actually use it in value addition of many, many, many products that we have. You know, people are producing things that are plant-based, medicines that are plant-based, soaps that are plant-based, and this would actually be useful. So we'll use it in value addition. And therefore, it is a very, very important crop in agro-industry. And Mr. Speaker, I believe the industrialization of this country and actually of the continent as a whole must be agro-based. I don't see any other way we'll go, because in other areas of technology, we are far behind. And yet, in crops and plants and all, we are actually ahead, but we are not using it. So if it is agro-based, it will definitely support our fourth agenda of manufacturing. So obviously, we are sitting on what I would call a gold mine. It would be definitely be important in job creation. We cannot take care of the young people, the unemployment, unless we go into manufacturing. So anything that we have like this must go into agro-industry, manufacturing, and then exportation so that we have foreign exchange. So we have something here that we really must promote. And it is not only this crop, but we have to look at all the crops we had. Mr. Speaker, the story of pyrethrum is very interesting. And I think coming from where you come from, you know about pyrethrum. Pyrethrum, Kenya was leading until we mismanaged it. And then the Japanese had to actually manufacture artificial pyrethroids because we could not produce enough to meet the world demand. The world is going backwards and using natural products. So again, that is another crop that we have that actually can go. Everybody is running away from the pyrethroids in the control of insects. So we have crops like that. Even if you take sugar, coffee, sisal, and all these, we really must go back. Mr. Speaker, in my view, the key to all this is actually we must go back and reorganize our extension work in agriculture. There is no way the farmers are going to succeed if they do not get support on the ground where they are working. Those extension workers in khaki uniform, we saw them as children. They were the backbone of our agricultural industry. We must go back there. And then we must now add marketing, finding the people in Kwale are growing this, selling it at about 65 shillings per kilogram. And yet in the world, the price is much bigger. So we must market them, find the markets, export them, use them for value addition, value add them, so that we can actually benefit from them maximally. And again, for farmers to work, we must really support the cooperative movement. It is very difficult for a single farmer to export, but if we have a cooperative movement and remove corruption from the cooperative movement, we will go a long way. Mr. Speaker, I support the scheduling of this crop as proposed by the mover. Thank you.
Very well. Well, I'm afraid quite a number of members wanted to speak to this, and the next was Honorable Wangwe and Honorable Kadhambi, but I'm afraid time. This business was time limited, and the time is over on this particular one, and therefore it is time for the mover to reply. Honorable Sawa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Before I reply, I would, now that you mentioned my senior Honorable Wange wanted to speak on this, I would request if I can donate 2 minutes.
You must be very gracious, Honorable Sawa. Who are we to refuse?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Now that he has given me...
How many minutes are you giving Honorable Wange? All your minutes?
No, 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wouldn't really take much time on it. I just want to thank him, Honorable Tandasa Sawa. Himself is an engineer, but he did research on crop development. This is a wonderful case, Honorable Speaker, and I just want to encourage that, Honorable Speaker, upon the registration of this crop into the list of scheduled crops, Honorable Speaker, let us quickly allocate resources to what is supposed to be done. Let's not schedule the crop, Honorable Speaker, and we leave it in the open. Let us support him so that he achieves the final goal. Registration is just step one, but at the end of it, Honorable Speaker, is to see that we commercialize. We make this crop useful to the people of course, the people he represents, Honorable Speaker. With that, I want to support the proposal, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Let me be clear. Did you give Honorable Kadhambi?
Okay, 1 minute, because I think the issue of gender was also coming up.
Okay, you have 1 minute, and then we get back to Honorable Sawa.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Actually, this is one of my most interesting part of the debate, and I wish to thank Honorable Tandasa for giving me 1 minute in relation with the crop amendment. Speaker, why I had a lot of interest to contribute it is because I've learned the crop itself is very special in this country once it is scheduled. And also, Speaker, it is good also to realize that there is a concept of the seed waste mixture with the chicken droppings, which can also create fertilizer for the farmers. And this, Mr. Speaker, it's also a moment for me to take and say, in relation with what Mheshimiwa is raising, it is also good to realize there's a lot of challenge with the matters of market. There's also challenge with the matters of funding, which means also, Mr. Speaker, this is also another challenge which other crops are facing in this country. And Mr. Speaker, why I wanted to contribute is to say, because Mheshimiwa has introduced a very important crop amendment, it is also the opportunity for the researchers in this country to do more research and find how many more crops can we introduce in a specific part of this country. And it is also in this note that I would like to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, that though we have different crops in these countries, which are included in the agriculture sector, which of course the agriculture becomes the backbone of this country, it is also good to note that it has not been taken seriously to support different crops in this country. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I just wanted to say, as we support.
Very well. I'm sorry. It is not me who gave you the time. It is Honorable Sawa. Now, Honorable Sawa, you have the remainder of the time, the minutes to reply.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you so much, honorable members, for the debate and further research that you have also undertaken into this matter of the Crops Amendment Act, having BICSA in the first schedule of the scheduled crops. I would also want to pass many thanks from my constituents who have been following this debate since last week live from their homes, and they have also requested me to pass their gratitude to the honorable members for this particular debate and the contributions which have come from both sides of the House and all supporting the scheduling of this crop. Since all of us have supported this crop, I might not really have much to add, apart from what they informed me that I should inform the House that as we speak and as we've agreed to have this crop scheduled, because of the coronavirus, they have been having only one buyer of this crop, that is Kenya BICSA, but because of the coronavirus, they were not able to manufacture now, do the processing and export, and the farmers currently have over 100 tons of BICSA seeds in their stores, not knowing where to take them, of course, they don't have even enough storage space, but they are now hopeful that with the passage of this bill, the government will come in and definitely, as required by law, they expect now that even when the only single buyer does not take the crop, the government will come in terms of marketing, probably storage, and of course guaranteeing them the minimum price. Because when it was introduced in the 70s, the price went to as high as 140 shillings per kg. Honorable Dr. Nyikala has put it correctly that currently, before they stopped buying, they were buying it at 65 shillings. So you can imagine a crop which was going for 140 shillings in the 70s, about 50 years later, it has dropped to less than half the price. You can imagine the agony of the farmers that they're undergoing. But at least with the passage of this bill, the farmers of my constituent, from my constituency, Kwale, Kilifi, it is also grown, and Lamu, as Honorable Mbogo put it correctly, last week they were demonstrating. There were demonstrations. Okay, sometimes it's not covered with our mainstream media when we demonstrate in cost, but actually there were demonstrations in Lamu, in Peketoni, specifically about this crop, the BICSA, which they also have in their farms, but the only buyer has closed because he cannot export, and they had hinged all their hopes in the selling of this crop to be able to take their children to school and to be able to take care of their own livelihoods. Otherwise, Honorable Speaker, I'm so grateful that all my colleagues have supported this bill, and I hope when we take the vote, of course, it will be a yes, and the next step, as my senior Honorable Wangu has said, the government should take it up very seriously to salvage the livelihoods of the people, not only the people of Kwale, Kilifi, and Lamu, but ultimately, having been taken by the government, the research which will be undertaken. This is a crop which can change the lives of Kenyans all over this country, and more so given that it's an industrial crop, it is a foreign exchange earner. So automatically, we will be able to replenish our foreign exchange reserves. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you once again, honorable members, not only from me, but also from my constituents. Thank you.
Well said, Honorable Sawa. The members will take a vote, not now, on this business at a later time, so we'll be putting the question on that. Let's proceed to the next order. Yeah, just.
Order number 9, the Labor Relations Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 18 of 2019, second reading.
Honorable members, we have gotten a formal request from Honorable Ishongwa to defer that business to another time, as will be scheduled by the House Business Committee, and I accede to that request. Next order.
Order number 10, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 19 of 2019, second reading.
Honorable Florence Mutua, you have the floor for that business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I only intend to take around 15 minutes on this amendment. Mr. Speaker, I have the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2019 of the Independent Electrical and Boundaries Commission Act 2011. Mr. Speaker, Section 35 of the Elections Act number 24 of 2011 provides as follows. Submission of party lists, 35A.
Have you moved for the second reading?
Second reading, yes.
Yes, you need to pronounce yourself about the second reading.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, this is the second reading of the Constitution of the Amendment.
You wish to move?
Mr. Speaker, I need to move.
You wish to move that whatever business be read a second time?
Yeah,
Mr. You need to pronounce yourself that way for record. You know, this will be read 100 years. Well, 100 years from now. So you need to be on record that you actually moved the second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that correction. Mr. Speaker, I intend to move for second reading the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2019 in regards to the amendment of the Independent Electrical and Boundaries Commission Act 2011. Mr. Speaker, Section 35 of the Elections Act number 24 of 2011 provides as follows. Submission of party lists. 35 reads, a political party shall submit its party list to the Commission at least 45 days before the date of the general election. Mr. Speaker, the principal objective of this bill is to amend Section 35 of the Elections Act number 24 of 2011 to change the timing of submissions for party lists by political parties for persons elected under Article 90 of the Constitution from at least 45 days from the date of a general election to within 21 days after the date of general election. The amendment is important in order to accord the political parties ample time to nominate persons to be elected under Article 90 of the Constitution. The persons elected under Article 90, as it stands, are the 12 members nominated by parliamentary political parties in the National Assembly, 16 women senators, 2 members in the Senate, 1 man and 1 woman representing the youth, and 2 members in the Senate, 1 man and 1 woman representing persons with disabilities. The nomination of these members should, however, be undertaken immediately after the general election and not before the general election to allow political parties to nominate persons of their choice, in addition to taking into account the representation of marginalized groups in accordance with Article 100 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I'll take through the House the disadvantages of presenting names for the gender top-up before election. 1, the number of women, men, youth, and persons living with disabilities, peoples living with disability, to make it through the elections is not known beforehand. Neither are their regions. Hence, if nominations are done early, one region may end up getting more women, youth, and persons living with persons with disability nominated. 2, once the names of the nominees are published in the Gazette notice, depending on the party's strength in the various regions, it is almost a guarantee for a job for a nominee. As a result, the nominees usually cease campaigning for candidates belonging to the political party that nominated them, not knowing that it is the number of the elected candidates that will determine the number of those who will be nominated to the various legislatures, houses. Without the assistance of the nominees, campaigns become more challenging, yet the more the number of elected members of the party, the more the slots for nominees. 3rd, when the nominations are done before elections and a particular person in a political party fails to receive nominations believing that it was well deserved, The aggrieved person then joins an opposing camp, hence causing loss to the original political party. This complicates the campaigns at a very crucial time. The campaign period is usually an emotive period, hence there is a possibility of nomination of unqualified or undeserving persons to merely appease certain interests at that time. Advantages of presenting names for gender top-up, Mr. Speaker, after elections. One, nominations after elections will ensure political party members who will be nominated to the legislature will work harder with the vying candidates, hence the party is in a win-win situation. The process prevents instances of bitterness by those left out of nominations, hence the campaigns and elections proceed smoothly as one house. Once the dust is settled after elections and the number of women, men, youth, and persons living with disability is known, the party, with soberness, can sit and agree on a suitable criteria for nomination, including taking into consideration the regions that fared badly in the election, among other considerations. This will ensure that regional and gender balance, more so in the marginalized areas, is met. A good current example is Murang'a and Homa Bay counties, whereby if the political parties had nominated a woman from the two counties, we would have additional women there instead of spreading the nominees to other counties that fared badly and had no woman candidate elected. After elections, party may lose strong people who they perceive may be useful in either of the houses. Hence, they may give the parties a chance to nominate strong nominees who, for institutional memories, may be required to continue pushing the party agenda in Parliament or at the County Assembly. A good example is in 2013, we lost Honorable Charity Ngilu, Honorable Kamar, Honorable Wavinya Ndeti, and Honorable Martha Karua. In 2017, we lost Shebesh, Honorable Shebesh, we lost Honorable Kajuju, Honorable Chepkonga, Honorable Jacob Midiwo, among a few other notable strong members. If the political parties had the option of nominating top-up after elections, a few of these members would have been nominated to either of the houses for continuity of the party agenda, among others. This is also one of the major reasons why I have also requested through the Speaker for an amendment to Article 92A of the Constitution in order to align it with the proposed amendment to Section 35 of the Elections Act. Mr. Speaker, lastly, the right candidates are soberly elected when emotions are down, more so those who rightly stood with the party matters and activities to the end. Overall, it is important that the laws of Kenya be regularly reviewed to address challenges and concerns of the day. Indeed, regular audits of the law are necessary to ensure that the laws of Kenya address live issues of concern to the people. Following the experience and challenges faced by political parties in the nomination of candidates to the legislature in the last two general elections, there is need to consider these amendments to address those challenges highlighted above, Mr. Speaker. The amendment to Section 35 of the Elections Act, however, also calls for an amendment to Article 92A of the Constitution, which provides that the IEBC shall ensure that each political party participating in a general election nominates and Mr. Speaker, the manner in which Article 92A of the Constitution is drafted appears that nomination is to be undertaken prior to elections being undertaken, and this therefore calls for an amendment also to Article 92A of the Constitution in order to align with the proposed amendment to Section 35 of the Elections Act. Mr. Speaker himself had given me the approval for my request to amend Article 92A of the Constitution so that it can align to the proposed Elections Amendment Bill 2018 to be both in tandem. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I request Honorable Mishi Mboko to speak on this matter further. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Who did you say seconding? Yes, Honorable Mishi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir. Honorable Speaker, sir, I also wish to second the second reading of this Election Amendment Bill 2018. This Amendment Bill 2018, Mr. Speaker, sir, tend to make amendment in Section 35 of the Election Act number 24 of 2011, Honorable Speaker. And it intends to change the timing for submission of party lists by political parties
for persons nominated under Article 90 of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, the bill also tends to change the timing from 45 days from the date of general election to within 21 days after the date of general election, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, to note is that the nomination we are proposing that should be done immediately after the general election and just within 21 days, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this amendment bill will ensure that the political parties will have enough time for nominations of persons under the Article 90 of the Constitution, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, during the election time, there are so many challenges. Also, the schedule of the political party is busy because everybody is involved in political party activities to ensure that they get positions through the various election posts. Honorable Speaker, the persons elected under Article 90 are the 12 in the National Assembly, the 16 women in Senate, the nomination.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with Morning Express, 40 minutes per 6 a.m. In case you're just joining us,